Welcome to Nashville. Are y'all enjoying Music City? Great, crazy fun town, isn't it? When I first moved here, it was an overgrown small town, not so much anymore. I've been asked to give you a little background history about this amazing organization. It started with Ralph Nader and Joan Claybrook. Half a dozen lawyers got together with Ralph and Joan in a hotel room, including Dean Robb, J.D. Lee, Bob Cartwright, Bill Colson, and they invited me to join them. I was this wide-eyed baby lawyer who was just amazed that I got invited to this esteemed group. And I think I must have been 12, the Doogie Howser of lawyers, because I couldn't possibly have been old enough to be a lawyer in 1980. But seriously, we left that room passionate and inspired to embark upon our mission to create a public interest law firm that would take on cases that the private bar was not doing. We had some of the greats, Ted Warshawski, Bill Trine, Sal Liccardo, Joe Cachette, Gene Pavlon, who were some of the other lawyers who were just absolutely inspirational, who joined immediately at the beginning of that mission. We began with 2 promises. Those who helped get this idea off the ground would pay $1,000 to be a founder of this organization, and we'd never ask them for another penny. And the second one was, because of their support, we would never turn our back on the biggest legal threats to our country. Didn't take us long to break that first promise. But, proud to say, 42 years later, we've never abandoned the second. Thanks. The Trial Lawyers for Public Justice first opened its doors with 200 founders in January of 1982. Our dedicated group of trial lawyers from across the country, along with some civil rights advocates and allies, were a small but mighty group with a staff of 2 people. Supported by time commitments from the early board and pro bono work from most of us, we were all driven by a desire to counter pro-business, anti-regulation agendas, government civil rights violations, all of which threaten to endanger consumers, workers, our environment, our civil rights. And we opened those doors about a year after Reagan was elected. And for the next 11 years with Reagan and Bush 1, they gave us plenty to consider litigating about. And it was just such a great group of legal minds. And along the way, we've inspired so many others to join us. I look at our current staff in amazement. We started with 2, we're now close to 50. And for some of them, they've stayed 20, 30 plus years. It says a lot about their commitment. And it says a lot about our cause. Our membership's grown exponentially. Public justice. Thank you. Just as important, I was the youngest. As always, we have a number of our past presidents here. And I'd like to recognize them in a second, but I'd also like to recognize somebody else. 32 of those 41 past presidents served while Arthur Bryant was the executive director of this organization. He guided the fluidity for all those years of transition from one president to the other. I'd like those presidents to stand. All the past presidents, please stand. And Arthur, please stand with us because we couldn't have done it without you. Now, look at that fabulous group. And if you want to know anything about the old TLPJ or public justice, just find one of us. There's nothing any of us like to do more than talk about this organization. Thanks to these leaders, and thank you for those that are carrying on the torch ever since. It's the early supporters and the torchbearers now who've made a very ambitious vision a reality. We ushered in an era of justice at a time when many thought dark days were dawning. Sound familiar? And since then, we've persevered, we've flourished. It's been victory after victory in good times and bad. That legacy of winning goes on. Despite political wins, despite the naysayers who said we couldn't do it, it continues to this very day. And is reflected in the vibrant organization that I'm looking out at right now. It's something we should all take pride in as we pledge to keep that sacred original promise that we will protect the powerless. We will take care of the underprivileged. We will use the deep pockets and political connections of the bad guys who try to thwart justice, and we will take them to task. Now let's have some fun tonight and enjoy the rest of your time in Music City.
Please focus your attention to the screens as we thank our... Thank you for your generous support. Now, please welcome Public Justice Staff Member Victoria Needy.
Good evening. Each year, Public Justice is proud to recognize the most significant victories of the trial bar with our annual Trial Lawyer of the Year award. This year, I was proud to partner with our board's Case Evaluation Committee to review these extraordinary cases from firms around the country. Tonight, we honor the three that stood out especially deserving of our recognition and praise. In the first of those cases, in re Capacitors antitrust litigation, a tenacious legal team was able to secure a whopping $605 million in total settlements for illegal price fixing by a criminal enterprise of Japanese and American companies that resulted in price hikes for consumers and turned corporate executives into fugitives from justice. Their victory took 7 years and 2 trials and ultimately took down an international cartel. Here's their story.
This case is in re Capacitors antitrust litigation in the Northern District of California before Judge Donato. We represented a class of direct purchasers alleging a violation of Sherman Act Section 1 for horizontal price fixing amongst a cartel of over 22 defendant families spanning the globe and fixing prices of capacitors for over a decade. Some antitrust cases start because the government launches an investigation. Other antitrust cases start because some smart people notice that there's an issue. This case was really a combination of both. A lot of members of the community, especially people who purchase capacitors regularly, suspected that there was some sort of untoward activity happening in the capacitor market. And it just so happened that those suspicions were confirmed when the first raids happened of these capacitor companies, I believe in Japan sometime in December, I believe it was mid-2014. Capacitors are ubiquitous little electronic components. What they really do is, at a very basic level, control the flow of electricity. They can be very tiny, microscopic to the size of a truck or a car. So the case involved at least 22 defendants across the globe who were regularly conducting price-fixing meetings. A lot of these defendants were all over and of all shapes and sizes, but many of them were very, very large, with large international footprints. Panasonic were involved, Hitachi were involved. And this cartel lasted for many, many years. Our class period, initially, as we alleged, ran from 2002 up through 2014. Our class members were all small businesses, and really took offense to the fact that, these large multinational corporations were fixing the price of these kind of ubiquitous that, some of them are caring for at-risk people. So we're just going to send everyone home. We ultimately released the jury and declared a mistrial in June 2020. We eventually retried the case in November 2021, and there were a lot of challenges because, just by passage of time, certain witnesses were no longer available. I actually remember when the judge announced the settlement in the courtroom. We were, there were a lot of jurors who were actually visibly shocked because I think the juror was really excited about going in there and deliberating and rendering a verdict. Honestly, I think the only person more disappointed than perhaps I was probably juror number 4. In particular, I want to recognize, Joe Saveri, who's obviously, the namesake of the firm. So it was really through his leadership, I think, that this case was such a success. And I think one of the greatest successes of this case was that, the recovery we recovered over single damages, but roughly about 140% of what our expert calculated as single damages. One of the most rewarding parts of this case was, our clients and class members got real money out of this. We cut many checks that were over tens of thousands of dollars. I think, any person should care about antitrust cases because ultimately antitrust cases are foundational to the American political economic system. The American system is built on, ingenuity, hard work, and, competition. But when large corporations are out there exploiting their own market power in order to make, fixed prices more than they should and cheat small businesses or individuals, I think that is completely anathema to that basic idea of, American competition and that free spirit, that entrepreneurial spirit that I think really undergirds American society.
Joshua Davis, Michael J. Kane, Mark Russell Sutter, Ruth Ann Gordon, C. Andrew Dirksen, Austin Cohen, Keith Barrere, Jason Hartley, James G.B. Dalal, Steve Williamson. Congratulations. Now, please welcome Public Justice Board members and co-chairs of the Class Action Preservation Project, Amy Keller and Sabita Sonji.
Amy, I cannot believe someone made the cardinal mistake of trusting us with this.
Yeah, no one knows what we're about to say, including us, which is why teleprompters are so helpful. In all seriousness.
As Mary mentioned earlier this evening, Public Justice began with a vision, a core group of really smart trial lawyers, 2 staff members, and not much else. The story of how that small but determined group turned their dream into one of the most impactful legal advocacy organizations in the country involves many chapters of change, eras of justice, and a cast of brilliant and colorful characters who contributed to our evolution over the past 4 decades. But there are a few characters who can claim to have had as much of an impact as Paul Bland.
All right, there's more. We got quite an intro here because Paul deserves it, quite frankly. So Paul first joined Public Justice in 1997, and he quickly established himself as a star litigator. Over the years, he racked up victory after significant victory and became renowned as one of the most impressive class action advocates in the country and our nation's foremost expert on defeating the scourge of forced arbitration, which threatened to reshape our justice system and deny plaintiffs.
We are so proud to announce the creation of the End Forced Arbitration Fund, launched in Paul's honor. I am even more pleased to announce that more than $100,000 has already been raised in support of this effort. Thank you to all of our donors who generously contribute to this special fund for this work. Tonight, as he begins a new chapter in his career, returning to the trial bar, we are proud to honor him with the Public Justice Legacy Award.
But what do each of you think when you think about Paul Bland? I'm sure you all have quite a few stories. What's the one word that comes to mind when you reflect on this brilliant attorney's career leading public justice? Well, Paul, a few of our friends had some thoughts. Now, don't get too nervous, because I promise it's going to be great. Let's see what they had to say.
Paul is one of the most empathetic and loyal and loving leaders that this organization could ever have.
Paul is extraordinarily humble.
The word that comes to mind is thoughtful.
Incomparable wit.
Brilliant.
And visionary.
He's a unicorn.
He cares about people. He cares about justice.
He's just kind.
I was working at a very small law firm in Baltimore, and my boss was on the board of what was then Trial Lawyers for Public Justice, or TLPJ. When I discovered that there was a job opening at TLPJ, they already really knew me pretty well, and so I was able to successfully pitch them that they should bring me on. In 1997, TLPJ was a much smaller organization. I think when I joined, there were 12 employees total. The organization largely was devoted to attacking bad class action settlements. Over time, what I began to see was that corporations were writing these fine print contracts that people didn't read or understand that were simply eliminating the right to bring class actions. And so these forced arbitration clauses were really just wiping away a lot of cases and making it possible for corporations to cheat people with complete impunity. If people understood the rights that they were supposedly giving up, tons of them would be angry and they would force change. So we have put an incredible amount of time and resources into trying to raise people's awareness around.
I gotta really up my game. I mean, this guy's like...
You've never seen anyone as great as Paul Bland in the courtroom. I remember that that particular Supreme Court argument went down in history as being the one Supreme Court argument that had more laughter than any other, more laughter recorded on the transcript. I always thought, isn't that fitting of Paul, right? Isn't that fitting of him?
Paul and his team as the thought leaders on those issues is just an incredible value to the consumer law community.
He stands up for what he believes in. He fights for it. He fights hard, fights fairly, but he is a strong and unwavering advocate for the things he believes in.
I was a huge believer in the mission of the organization. I thought that it did incredibly important work and it was absolutely crucial to a lot of its clients. I think that the organization was struggling a little bit in several ways. I put myself in for the position because I believed that I could be a part of helping sort of heal the organization and helping it grow.
Paul took over leadership at a time that, in retrospect, was really challenging.
Paul had his own ideas and was very concerned about making sure that public justice was equipped not just to deal with the issues of the past, but more appropriately was focused on the future.
He was the right person for that time because he had the respect and trust of the staff.
Being executive director of public justice is a tough job because you're working with experts in a variety of fields. So you're working with some of the smartest lawyers in the country, and you have to be able in each of those categories to be an effective partner to them, and Paul is able to do that.
He is a very thoughtful and considered and deep thinker.
One great achievement in Paul's tenure was the Strategic Directions initiative.
It's 16 pages long. It's extremely thoughtful. I think it helps crystallize and bring together a really thoughtful, clever approach to how we can have the biggest impact that we can.
That work was very staff-driven, and Paul was an integral part of that.
I think the impact is that public justice is now a very strong and thriving organization and has moved into the future.
All you have to do is look at the organization on his first day as executive director and today. The staff size has doubled. The budget has doubled. But behind that story is a story about diversifying the support for the organization. He has been laser focused on growth, but simultaneously the sustainability of that growth.
And I think one of the real tributes to him is where we are today, which is also his stepping away and a new leadership coming in. And he managed to attract so many people and make them passionate about it, make us believe that we all could do something about the most important problems facing the country. And he made everyone feel like they had something to offer in the fight.
That's who Paul is. It's baked into his DNA, and he's never going to change.
Please join us in recognizing and thanking the man who made so much of what we're hearing about tonight possible. An icon who leaves behind a legacy of justice and possibility, Paul Bland.
My heart is really full, and I feel like thanking people both on the staff and on the board and other supporters, and I feel like I could burn up the entire short amount of time I have, and there's a couple of things I really want to say. So please don't take me not naming a whole lot of people to whom I'm incredibly grateful as a lack of having a full heart. In this moment in time, being at this convention, what I'm seeing repeatedly is there are a lot of people who feel like the biggest issues in the world right now are whether this country's even going to be a democracy in 5-10 years. And I feel like there are a lot of people who are wondering, does trial lawyers work? Does trial lawyer work matter? Does public justice matter? Does any of this matter? Does anything other than the election matter? And I think there are two things that are happening at the same time that answer that. So the first thing that's going on is you have a bunch of really big, powerful corporations run by a very tiny number of people who are really making a concerted decision right now that they're pretty much ready to give up on democracy. Like Peter Thiel says it openly. Like he says, oh, democracy, like who are a bunch of like idiot voters out there to tell me, a genius, how to run my billion-dollar company, right? You know, there were lawsuits against Apple, and all of a sudden tech has decided that they're done with democracy. The FTC has said you can't have non-compete clauses anymore, and then trial lawyers are bringing a bunch of cases against companies who have non-compete clauses, and tech's decided they're done with democracy. Basically what we're seeing is a bunch of the richest people in the country have decided that if you're going to try and hold us to these laws dealing with, you know, working people, that makes us too angry. So that's one thing that's going on in democracy. But, you know, another thing that's going on in the country right now is that the idea of just let's give all the money to the richest people turns out not to be a way to get people to vote. So what they've come up with, you know, in order to have sort of hedge fund politics of we're just going to have, you know, incredible tax, like Trump has an additional tax cut to lower the tax rate for the richest even more. How does he sell that? So what he does is he turns to blaming everything on people of color and LGBTQ people. The way he's trying to get his people out is blame and attack and hate. It's that there are these people who are causing all of your problems. You're not making enough money. Your life is really hard right now. Your rent is really high. It's probably because an immigrant did this to you. It's a brown person who did this to you. It's somebody, it's an other. And you are the real Americans and they're the other. Okay? So there's a combination right now of rich people who are done of democracy and they're selling it through hate. And it turns out that public justice is right at that intersection. So we fight against corporations who are ripping people off. We fight against corporations who are violating important rights, protecting people, deceiving people, against predatory lending, against a whole bunch of the things that make the country unfair. And we're also simultaneously fighting against the hate. We have a powerful civil rights group in the organization. You have the Student Civil Rights Project, the Debtors Prison Project. You have some of the best cutting-edge civil rights work in the country, and a lot of it is fighting against the hate that's being used to sell us towards autocracy, or towards oligarchy. So I get that people are really worried about the election. And a couple of weeks ago, I lost the ability to sleep or eat after I'd gone over, but my heart is so full of gratitude for the opportunity I had to be in this place. I got to work with incredibly smart, brilliant, passionate people who care about the world, and I showed up day after day and got to talk to people who were filled with ideas about how to help people and improve people's lives. We had cases that literally saved people's lives where we stopped on dangerous things that were happening in workplaces. We shifted billions of dollars from big corporations that were ripping people off to the people who had been ripped off. We did some really great stuff. We won 3 huge cases in the Supreme Court and literally scores of cases in federal courts of appeals and state Supreme Courts. We really helped build a lot of law that helped people, and I'm so grateful to have been a part of that. And then I got to work with this huge board of people, sometimes fractious, but often everybody there was there because they were passionate, because they cared about the organization, because they wanted it to work. And even when we were sometimes, wrestling through how it was going to work out, it was because people were passionate and they loved it. And so I got to work with the presidents of the board during my 10 years. I'm so grateful to, from Esther all the way through to Preston. They were all fantastic leaders, and Ted Leopold before Esther. I got to work with amazing presidents of the board. There are a lot of people. And then there's all these people who are not on the board, but who reach out and help us in a bunch of different ways, give us ideas, who support us with your money in different ways. And it's been a huge feeling of being supported and loved by people in a way that really has meant so much to me. So my heart is really full. I thank all of you. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And I'm so incredibly excited that you're going to get to meet Sharon. She is brilliant. She is incredibly positive. She has great energy. She is funny as she can be. You're going to love her, and you're going to be so lucky to have her. So Sharon's going to just be such a great leader for you. Thank you. Thank you.
Please welcome the Director of Public Justice's Access to Justice Project, Leah Nichols.
And justice for all. At Public Justice, we're proud to fight every single day for those who have been harmed by corporate wrongdoers, including those whose water, air, and communities have been polluted by what is perhaps the dirtiest conglomerate of all, the coal industry. For decades, Public Justice's Environmental Enforcement Project has directly taken on polluters in court, holding bad actors accountable and securing justice for the communities and workers who are forced to bear the brunt of corporate dirty work. Building on the legacy of former Director Jim Hecker, one of the most important citizen suit litigators in the history of this country, and with the expertise and passion of current Director Dan Snyder, who hoped to be here this evening but was unable to join us because of travel disruptions, so I'm filling in. EEP continues to win precedent-setting cases that result in meaningful, transformative change. That's why I'm so proud, on behalf of Jim and Dan and all of us at Public Justice, to introduce tonight's second Trial Lawyer of the Year finalist, Adkisson versus Jacobs Engineering Group. a case which echoes our own commitment to this work. In this case, a group of determined trial attorneys secured justice for the workers who cleaned up one of the largest coal ash spills in U.S. history, prevailing in a 10-year case that stands as a testament to the power of the courts to protect worker safety. Thank you.
In 2008, when the spill occurred, life changed for a lot of people.
If I knew then what I know now, I would have said, leave that job, come home, don't ever go back.
All right, so TVA is Tennessee Valley Authority, and it is a nuclear energy provider, but a lot of other things. But of course, like a lot of those companies, you have materials that need to be either encapsulated or somehow safeguarded.
They had just been putting, for years, coal ash into this huge pond and building the walls up around it. And we received a phone call from my husband's foreman, and he told him that, he said, basically all hell's broke loose at Kingston, and we need you down here fast.
Jacobs, which is the contractor that TVA hired to do the cleanup, hire local contract workers to come in and clean up the spill.
They were assured right off the bat that everything was fine, that it was okay, that it was safe.
The on-site Jacobs safety manager would routinely tell the workers, you can eat a pound of this stuff a day and be safe. That's a direct verbatim quote.
I noticed he was cleaning his ears with Q-tips, and the Q-tips were the color of the coal ash. And he would blow his nose, and there would be, it wouldn't even be normal. It would be like a gray color.
It was very clear that coal ash does have radioactive materials like uranium and radium and other toxic materials, but the workers were never given personal protective equipment at any level.
Even if they brought their own dust mask, they would be shown to the gate.
And so here the workers are caught between wanting to make money for their families, but also wanting to be protected so that they could be safe and healthy and not die from being exposed to it.
You go to work somewhere, they tell you you're safe, get your job done. They worry about you wearing steel-toed boots and a hard hat and a reflective vest, but they're killing you. And I was just like, they've done this to my husband, the love of my life. I just could not flip and believe it. So do you just, carry that around with you, or do you do something about it?
After the general causation trial and verdict, which was in October of 2018, my firm at the time was asked to come in May 2020 to handle all 245 or so specific causation trials.
When Greg Coleman and firm came on the case and took it over, at that point, I felt like we had a chance.
These folks had been in litigation for over 10 years. It was filed in 2013. Here we are in October of 2023. They had not received a dime in compensation.
He was diagnosed with high blood pressure, asthma, and acute bronchitis, and emphysema.
But to get this many people to agree to an amount and their distribution,
Would the team from Atkinson v. Jacobs Engineering Group please stand and be recognized as I call your name? Please hold your applause until all names have been announced. Gregory Coleman, Adam Edwards, Mark Sylvie, William Ladner, Virginia Whitener, Kelsey Davies, Alex Strauss, Arthur Stock, Jonathan Cohen, Ryan McMillan, Justin Day, Alexandra Honeycutt, Louis Ringer III, Gary Davis, Jeff Friedman, Jim Scott, Lisa White, James Whitlock, Keith Stewart, John Dupree, John Tyler Roper. Congratulations. Please welcome to the stage your new public justice president, Janet Varnell.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor and express our heartfelt gratitude to a remarkable leader, a passionate advocate, and an inspiring individual, Preston Tisdale. As he's concluding his tenure as our current public justice president. Preston, your leadership has been transformative. You've guided us through major milestones with grace and determination and unwavering commitment. John Lewis, one of your heroes, once said that you're a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Preston, you have been our light, illuminating the path forward, inspiring us all to strive for excellence. And under your leadership, we have witnessed a seamless transition. You've set a new standard for this. But because of your thoughtful selection process, we now have our new Chief Executive Director, Sharon McGowan, and this is a testament to your steady guiding and strategic foresight. The crowning achievement, of course, was this smooth transition. You've done the structured onboarding of Sharon McGowan, and it was not just welcomed, but fully equipped to lead this organization into our extraordinary future. And while I don't know whether you could possibly imagine the difficulty of a job like that and in a group like this, full of opinionated lawyers, but it's rather like being the director of a symphony where every musician insists that they're the conductor and every instrument is playing a different tune. But your tenure was also marked by significant strategy and programmatic expansion. You initiated an innovative program proposals that fostered more focused connection between our programs and communications. This synergy has enhanced our outreach and our impact, ensuring that our message resonates more powerfully than ever. Your unwavering commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility has left an indelible mark on public justice. Our board is more diverse because of your insistence that we grow and we learn, and we know so much more now about how to communicate with one another on these difficult issues in a loving and supportive manner. You consistently supported that DEI&A committee, and the sessions were a fixture at every single board meeting. So we not only talk the talk now, but we walk the walk. Your relationship building efforts with the minority, the women, the LGBT, and the new lawyers caucuses of AAJ have substantially strengthened our community and broadened our perspectives. Your dedication to engaging with law students, which I now look over this crowd and I realize we have more law students at this reception than I think we've ever had at any gala. This became evident at the reception in New Haven, Connecticut. So as we pass the baton, we are filled with gratitude for your extraordinary service and dedication. John Lewis also said one last thing I'm going to tell the crowd. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? You have embodied this call to action. And for that, we are profoundly thankful. Please accept this gift. From your very grateful board, this beautiful portrait of John Lewis for you to put in your office with the same admiration and respect that you will look at it every day is how we feel about you.
Thank you. Oh, wow. Oh, you brought it. Oh, man.
I got promise. Good?
Good. Thank you, Janet, for those heartfelt words. I'm wowed, honored, and I truly appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with everyone here in public justice, and what can I say? Thank you. It was such an honor as be president of public justice during such a transformative time in our history. Leading this storied organization is a privilege that offers a front row seat for some of the most incredible legal and advocacy work happening in our country. Just in my short time as board president, public justice has virtually ended the discriminatory cash bail system in Los Angeles County. Defeating one of the most pernicious attempts to criminalize poverty and punish the poor. We've saved the habitat of a threatened bird species that relies on old growth forests to nest and survive. Forests that Dan Snyder and our environmental litigation team are helping to preserve. Our Student Civil Rights Project continued its impressive work to win racial and gender justice in the Deep South, taking on a private school in Alabama that expelled a 3-year-old black child after singling him out for repeated and unwarranted punishment and setting the stage for a new era in the work to hold private religious institutions accountable for racism and discrimination. And our Access to Justice team intervened to unseal court records and challenge court secrecy in a particularly important case in California, helping to shine a light on unspeakable abuse and mistreatment at a women's prison in the Bay Area. And in Iowa, our savvy and strategic communications work resulted in getting a local sheriff to admit on national television that his department was saddling low-income people with excessive fines and fees because of greed and indifference. And consider that that's just the tip of the iceberg. If I listed all of the accomplishments over just the course of 1 year, I'd be standing here talking about them until next year. That's how impressive this extraordinary group is. And then along the way, we also went searching for a new leader for public justice. And tonight I'm proud and reassured that we succeeded in finding an exceptional person who you will meet shortly to pick up where Paul Bland left off and propel public justice into its next phase. All of this work, both our external efforts to change laws and change our country and our internal work to write public justice's next chapter, makes me extraordinarily proud and centers public justice in a modern day movement for justice that harkens back to the civil rights era and continues that critical work to end racism, racist systems, and institutions, ensure equal opportunity for everyone, and preserve access to our court so that we can all stand against court, supported by the whole truth about the challenges they face. I work to end forced arbitration, as my friend and board colleague Miriam Gillis has reminded us so many times, is about ensuring our non-discriminatory laws cannot be undermined or watered down by corporate fine print. So in my mind, there is no separation between workers' rights, consumer rights, environmental justice, and racial justice. They all are one and the same, each connecting and collaborating to ensure liberty and justice for all. And that realization must lie at the heart of a determination that here at Public Justice, We will refuse to be divided by false choices, refuse to be anything but united in the fight for full justice. What the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg called whole milk justice. Because if these fights are seen as separate, we can never be equal. This evening, we come together each day from now on. We must remain as one movement, one mission, one goal, a diamond of multifaceted justice reflecting the shared needs, aspirations, and goals of all of us. So tonight, as we celebrate all we have done together and prepare for the fights that lie ahead, I leave you with those thoughts from the great Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is but a broken winged bird that cannot fly. This dream of public justice that began some 42 years ago has given justices wing and helped to lift up those who have been battered but never broken by the forces of corruption, greed, selfishness, racism, homophobia, and misogyny. And let's leave here tonight remembering that we birds who dream of better days must always, always fly together. I'm so proud to be a part of this organization that is rooted in the most noble traditions of our country's activist pioneers, but that no matter the headwinds, refuses to be grounded or told it cannot fly. Thank you.
Please welcome Public Justice Board Member Tori Nugent to the stage.
Good evening. Tonight, I'm here as a proud former public justice staffer trained by Paul Bland, a former litigator from Cohen-Milstein, and a current public justice board member. And I'm also proud and delighted and frankly awed to present the third and final Trial Lawyer of the Year case, John Doe versus ExxonMobil Corporation. In 2023, after 22 years of litigation, 11 Indonesian citizens held ExxonMobil Corporation accountable in a US district court for human rights atrocities committed by its security contractors in Indonesia. This case began as part of a pioneering wave of alien tort statute complaints. But by the time that it ended, it was a roadmap to justice. The legal team defeated 9 motions to dismiss, 2 summary judgment motions, and multiple rounds of appellate briefings to determine the scope and meaning of the alien tort statute. And the result is a roadmap for using foreign tort law in US courts to hold multinational corporations accountable. Please take a moment to watch this video and learn about this extraordinary triumph.
John Doe versus ExxonMobil was brought on behalf of 11 Indonesian villagers who alleged that they or their family members were either tortured, killed, or kidnapped by Indonesian soldiers who were providing security for ExxonMobil's facilities in Indonesia. It's like the classic David and Goliath. We represented 11 Indonesian villagers, most of whom had never left their rural area of Aceh, Indonesia. And they were living in this kind of very rural, bucolic setting, and Exxon discovered natural gas and oil, and so Exxon moved in and developed these facilities to extract the natural gas, and they expanded. And as they were doing that, there was a civil war going on in Aceh, an independence war, and so Exxon, to protect its facilities, contracted with units of the Indonesian military to protect its operations. And then those soldiers kidnapped, killed, and tortured our clients' relatives. For example, one of our clients, she had just given birth. She was home with her newborn baby, and her husband disappeared. And she didn't know where he had gone. He was missing for 2 or 3 days, and he came home with his hand hacked off and one of his eyes gouged out. And so there's just case after case like that involving the soldiers from the Exxon facilities. At that time, Exxon was the largest and most profitable company in the world. It's like 11 destitute rural villagers who hadn't, been to secondary school against the world's largest corporation. So the ATS is the Alien Tort Statute. It was passed in the first Judiciary Act in 1789, and what it did was allow aliens the right to sue under the law of nations. And at the time we filed the suit, it was thought to be an incredibly powerful tool to enforce human rights norms. And then midway through our lawsuit, the Supreme Court really limited its scope. It said it only applied to conduct in the United States. And our case, of course, was in Indonesia. We had to retool the whole case. And what we landed on was the transitory tort doctrine, which is an ancient legal doctrine that says you can bring suit against a tortfeasor wherever they're found, but you use the law of the place where the tort occurred. So we used Indonesian law. And I think what's easy to overlook, especially by American lawyers, is that every country has laws. And since we filed our case and kind of developed this idea that you could do that, there have been other cases that, actually sped past us because our case took so long. So we got that summary judgment opinion from Judge Lamberth, which was an 86-page opus where he marched through the facts of every single one of our claims and found that Exxon's defenses were meritless. It gave the clients really almost everything that they wanted. It told their whole story about what happened, about how Exxon started in Aceh, about how they knew about the abuses by the Indonesian military, how mass graves had been found near their facilities, and how they kept hiring more and more troops to protect their facilities, even though they knew these abuses were continuing. And he also found that we had enough evidence to go to trial on the fact that they didn't adequately supervise the soldiers that were stationed at their facilities. And then he set the case for trial, and we were getting ready for trial, and then 2 weeks before trial, we settled. So the case was like David and Goliath, not just because of the plaintiffs, but also because our legal team. It was mostly at the beginning me and a whole bunch of human rights fellows. And then later in the case, when things got closer to trial, the firm staffed up with some senior trial attorneys, and we also brought in, at the second appeal, Paul Hoffman, who is a leading human rights litigator. I think the unfortunate fact is these abuses happen all over the place, and they're just, people in America don't hear about them, and they don't really realize the costs of the gas and the oil that they have. And hopefully this settlement, the blockbuster opinion we got from Judge Lamberth and the settlement, send a message to companies that you can't roll the dice, that you'll get away with it in a foreign country where you've kind of got a lot of control and there's a weak rule of law and a potentially corrupt judiciary where people aren't going to get access to justice. That you can roll the dice on that, but eventually you will be caught and you will, justice will prevail. And I think these 11 villagers showed that.
Frischman, Leslie Mitchell Kroger, Kit Pearson, Robert Cobbs, Nicholas Jacques, Purad Razi, Sharon Robertson, Nada Sulanaman, Leslie Green, Kathleen Konopka, Maureen McOwen, Marka Peterson, Thomas Sanders, Rita Simeon, Matinge Sirleaf, Paul Hoffman, Terry Collinsworth, Anthony DiCaprio, Brent Landau, Allison Ford Wuba, Beatty Shepard. Congratulations. Please welcome Public Justice President Janet Varnell back to the stage.
No, welcome everyone. I've got the little lawyer Oscar right here in this little room. So it is my great honor to announce this year's winning team for the Trial Lawyer of the Year Award. As tonight's 3 finalist teams have shown us, there's nothing that a group of smart, passionate trial lawyers cannot do when they set their minds to it. That's the legacy of our profession. And this organization stands on that every single day. Please, let's take a moment to acknowledge the work that each team has done. And now, the winning team is John Doe 1 versus ExxonMobil Corp. so proud of you. Thank you for doing the case. Look at you, Leslie. Last time I saw you, we won a trial.
I know.
Congratulations.
Okay, I was definitely told that I didn't have to say anything. Kind of horrified. It is a real honor to get this. Those other cases were amazing, and everyone really deserves this award. But the people who deserve it the most are our clients, the 11 villagers. Nothing would have happened to me. The worst thing that would happen to me is I'd get a paper cut working on this case. But those villagers brought this case at the risk of their lives, and they were afraid of dying every minute. They were afraid of retaliation, and they were in fear for their lives.
To have someone that you work with that inspires you, like Agnieszka inspires me. She's taken me around the world. She is humble. She's also the most
Okay,
brilliant.
I'm not that humble. I forgot to thank Leslie, and I forgot to thank Nick, and I forgot to thank everybody.
She's one of the most brilliant lawyers that I know. And if you're going to do human rights work, you need to contact her because she has paved the way. She has made the law. She has made it so that you can represent people in Indonesia and Thailand and Colombia and Ecuador and wherever injustices might be, because they are everywhere. They are in our backyard, like the coal ash case. They are around the world. It changed their lives for generations. And it should have happened 20 years before. But it happened because of her. And it continues to happen around the world because of her and lawyers like her. So again, I say, I hope you have someone who you work with now, or who you will work with in the future, who you worked with in the past, who will bring you to a point in your career where you don't care about the money. Money's great, but you don't care about the money for yourself. You care about the difference that you are making in your clients' lives. So I love you, Agnieszka Frisman. You are an amazing lawyer, and thank you, Public Justice, for recognizing her and all the hard work that she has done.
At the very beginning, I just want to make sure nobody missed this part, that Agnieszka has worked on this case for 22 years. I was in elementary school when this case was filed. I worked on it for 3 years. I don't know why I get to be up on this stage. But if there is anything I think that embodies the spirit of a trial lawyer, it is not giving up on a case that takes 22 years. And there is a reason that Exxon fought this case for 22 years, because they thought that they could get
Hello, everyone. I am a Public Justice Board member, Larry Taylor, and they put baby in the corner. So first of all, before I start, I want to thank Paul once again, and I would like to thank him for being reserved, because if you heard what he told me in the hallway, you would have been shocked and floored. So thank you for pulling back the punches, Paul, and taking it easy on the Republicans and how we're doing with the voting. So we're here doing a quick change for the second portion of our award ceremony. And while we're waiting, I'm here to remind you about the wonderful things that you heard today about public justice. This evening is only possible because of the support of the donors and members and sponsors. You heard about the 4 different projects that we have going on: Access to Justice, Student Civil Rights, the Debtors Prison, and Environmental Enforcement project. These are all possible because of you and your memberships. And I want to take a personal privilege and just let you know, while we've seen a lot of incidents where people of color and people in other countries have been affected, I want each and every one of you guys to remember that those coal miners are many of your brothers, sisters, cousins, and nephews. That public justice and organizations like the law firms you saw here today stepped in. Public justice has done amazing things. I like to call them superheroes because they are the ones who address the things that go bump in the night. And so we need your help. So at each one of your tables is a QR code. I need to make sure that each firm in here has each and every member of their law firm to be a member of this great organization. Because without that, they could not do the work that needs to be done. So you have staff members throughout. Raise your hand if you are an ambassador or a member or a board member code, and let's get memberships. And I'm going to throw one thing in because I'm someone who puts my money where my mouth is. Tonight, if your law firm signs up more members than anyone else, I will personally take 10 of your law firm lawyers to my favorite Cuban restaurant in Miami. So please, and you don't want to miss hanging out and eating with me. So you can remember, you can also upgrade. So if you're already a member, ante up. All right? So closing, so we can all get out of here and get back to the bar. I want to say thank you for your time, because we count on you. And the work and support that you give us is important and imperative for the work that goes forward. And so saying that, I'm going to have my date for the night perform again for you guys. Ms. Vidalia. I was trying to make it fancy. Annie Gentry. Thank you.
Yes. Y'all make some noise for this suit. Making some competition for best dress over here. Yes. And y'all, while you've got your phones out getting signed up, becoming a new member, if you want to keep up with all the drag happenings here in Tennessee and Nashville, and you want to follow my gay ass on Instagram, you can do that at Vag for short. That's Vag like vagina, for like the number, and short like not tall. Vag for short. Give me a follow. Very politically involved. You'll see a lot of what's going on here. I also realized after my earlier performance of Rocky Top that some of you are not from here and did not know that when Miss Parton says good old Rocky Top, you all say, woo! So let's try it all together real quick, okay? Good old Rocky Top. All right, see, now you know. Take that back home and tell them how Tennessee was good to you, good to you, good to you. Like he said, my name is Vidalia Ann Gentry. That makes my initials VAG, so you can call me Vag for short. I'm gonna perform a little number for you. Hit it, DJ.
When Sharon first called me and said, I'm thinking about this job at Public Justice, do you think I should pursue it? I breathed a huge sigh of relief and I said, yes, please.
We needed somebody who was going to be able to articulate the mission of public justice in a compelling way. And in my mind, somebody who really understood litigation, understood the application of the law to advance the greater good.
I have, over the course of my career, been very fortunate to always feel as though I've been able to use my talents in service of my values and to create the world that I want to live in, and now as a parent, the world that I want to leave to my kids. My wife and I met in the trenches of LGBT advocacy work. She was fighting Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and I was a lawyer at the ACLU, so we were love forged in the movement, so to speak. And we now live in Maryland with our two wonderful daughters, Sadie and Shia. And I think the thing that really speaks to me and speaks to people when I talk about public justice is that this is an organization that is there to ensure that whether it is corporations or the government or that really nefarious combination of the two is not able to run roughshod over people. And so public justice and the network of incredible trial lawyers that are part of this family are the ones that actually make sure that commitments on paper and rights on paper and protections on paper actually translate into meaningful protection in people's lives. So I grew up in Queens, New York, the middle child of 4. Because my father was a police officer, there was always sort of the law and order kind of vibe going on in the house. He was the order and I liked the law part better. But I think when I went to undergraduate at the University of Virginia and was studying government and foreign affairs, I was really fascinated with constitutional law. My constitutional law class was the thing that really just kind of sparked this idea in my mind that this was really the path that I wanted to walk down, to use the law to vindicate rights, to actually sort of make our country into this more perfect union, and that put me on the path. Working at the Department of Justice is a really sort of one of those points of your career path that you didn't really expect that you would take. Being able to be one of the voices from the inside that really called the question within the Justice Department about why were we defending the Defense of Marriage Act was one of those moments where you like to think you could be part of making that kind of change, but to actually see it play out was really overwhelming. And then, of course, 2016 happened. And I would say it wasn't even as much Donald Trump being elected president, but it was Jeff Sessions being nominated as Attorney General. And I was like, oh, I'll show myself out. Thanks very much. So literally, it was whatever day it was in February, Jeff Sessions and his entourage entered stage left, and I left stage right, and was very fortunate to be able to take all of the knowledge that I had built and the connections that I'd built and then use that to help establish Lambda Legal's first Washington, D.C. office and then engage in that combination of litigation and policy advocacy to kind of hold back what we knew was coming with the Trump-Sessions administration.
Our next witness is Sharon McGowan, who's the Chief Strategy Officer and Legal Director of Lambda Legal.
Tucker, this isn't a fight about transgender people and having surgery. This is about transgender Americans who want to serve, who are willing to take a bullet.
I'm asking you
Tucker,
a sincere question. Can you please do me the honor of...
our country.
I came up the ranks as a litigator, and I love the fact that public justice is among the creme de la creme of litigators in the country, and yet we also put that litigation into a larger context of advocacy.
Being able to spend the time with Sharon and to see her talking about public justice and the public justice mission, it became clear to me that I thought she would be a very effective ambassador for public justice.
And one of the things that struck me is that I feel others inspired by her, and I feel a sense of excitement from staff and from others around her, board members, about her.
She will be traveling the country and meeting with our members who are such important partners to the organization and the work that we do, and talking to them about how we can deepen that partnership.
I already got my bags packed and I'm ready to hit the road and looking forward to meeting people where they are, learning about their legal practices, learning about their legal communities, and sharing the good news about public justice.
I would love to see the organization continue to grow and to thrive. I think that Sharon is an absolutely brilliant and terrific and inspiring leader, and I think she's going to be incredibly successful.
When I saw that Paul was going to be passing the baton, at first I didn't even think that it would necessarily be something that I would be able to take on. But I'm certainly up for the challenge, and I will hopefully every day make the organization proud.
What a remarkable career. What a remarkable leader. So those of you who have already met her know just why I am so excited to welcome Sharon McGowan to the public justice family And those of you who are meeting her for the first time tonight will soon understand why public justice's best days, its new epoch of change, are just now dawning before us. Please join us in welcoming Public Justice's Chief Executive Officer, a battle-tested trial lawyer, a renowned public servant, a visionary strategist for justice, and an unflappable optimist who will take us into public justice's future, Sharon McGowan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo!
Woo! Hey, everybody. So, if a journey of 1,000 miles really does begin with a single step, then stepping onto this stage and into this room feels like the beginning of an amazing adventure. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight and for that very warm welcome. In case you haven't figured it out, I am Sharon McGowan, and I am so thrilled to be here as the new Chief Executive Officer of Public Justice. Though I am new to the Public Justice family, I am no stranger to the incredible work that this organization and that all of you have been doing for more than 4 decades. Throughout my career, I have marveled at your tenacious advocacy on behalf of hard-working people fighting for justice. As legal director of Lambda Legal, I cheered when Public Justice secured not 1 but 2 U.S. Supreme Court victories that threw open the courthouse doors for workers and consumers. As someone who served in the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division under President Obama, I welcomed your advocacy to strengthen Title IX and to change how school districts address and prevent sexual assault and harassment. And as a queer woman, I stood with you in solidarity when you took on Betsy DeVos and fought for LGBTQ+ kids and taught our community why civil rights and the right to a day in court are inseparable in the fight for full equality and justice. I am also no stranger to the era of justice that the founders of this organization helped to usher in. And I stand here tonight humbled by not only the opportunity, but also the responsibility to carry on that work and to mold the model that they have given us for a new epoch that is now dawning. Just as courageous public justice pioneers like Joan Claybrook, Mary Parker, where are you, Mary? And Sandra Robinson stood up and lit the path forward during the dark days of the Reagan administration, so must we accept that torch now and chart the path forward, even as powerful interests of big money and small minds once again attempt to lock up our courts and relegate our loved ones to a form of second-class citizenship. At other times, describing the work ahead of us as an existential battle might seem melodramatic, but sadly, today, it rings all too true. Our courts treat precedent as optional when inconvenient. Our politicians legislate not for the people, but for the we're invisible. Everywhere we turn, there is a beloved liberty being lost and a new battle to be waged. So, why, in the midst of all of this, did I want to take on the responsibility of leading this storied organization? Is it because Public Justice is an organization that combines unparalleled legal prowess with in-house expertise on communications, public education, and coalition building to create real, meaningful, and regenerative change? Why, yes, of course. That was a very huge part of why I am here tonight. But here's the other part. I know that Public Justice has a secret weapon to win these wars, by which I mean holding the powerful accountable, eliminating barriers to opportunity, and unleashing the full potential of a diverse and inclusive society. And that secret weapon is each and every one of you.
For decades, the trial bar has been demeaned and dismissed, notwithstanding this undeniable truth in every chapter of this country's progress. We have played a leading role. And in this new epic that we are called upon to build together, we will help lead the way. As I look into the crowd tonight, yes, absolutely, we will lead the way. Rules and circumvent state laws protecting consumer rights. I see Beth Terrell, who allowed us to join her in taking on the most powerful of corporate interests, Amazon, with a goal of protecting the men and women who are the true essential workers keeping our country going. Gerson Smoger, where are you, Gerson? Who never hedges or hesitates when we need his eloquent, powerful, and effective amicus briefs to help build our cases and make them stronger. Anna Prakash, who's with us in the interwebs, watching us by the stream, who invited us to join her in fighting a racist charter school in Minnesota. And our newly elected board member, Joe Wardensky, back in the corner there, who helped us transform how a school system in Alabama, the deepest heart of the Deep South, treats LGBTQ+ students, and by extension, all students, at risk of losing out not only on educational opportunity, but on the chance to just be a kid because of hate and discrimination in the community where they live. The list goes on and on and on. And these are your gifts, both in the sense that they are your talents, but also in the sense that they are your gifts to the legal community, to our clients, and to our world. And they reveal a bright and shining truth. Your partnership is the key to our progress, and your passion is at the heart of our plan to meet the challenges ahead. You will help us win this battle to define what kind of country then together we create what will be. That, my friends, that is the heart and the courage and the power of the trial bar. That's what gives me hope. And it's what gives hope to the entire public justice staff, to our clients, and frankly, to the country as a whole. So the next time they tried to demean us and dismiss us and use trial lawyer as a dirty smear, remind them what the trial lawyers have given us: safer workplaces, safer schools, safer products, safer cars, safer medicines, safer air, safer food, safer water. And we have delivered all of those things and so much more to everyone, regardless of how much political power they hold or how much money they can pay. Ours is a noble calling, and this incredible organization that you, the members of the trial bar, have helped us build is more essential than ever before. Our enemies believe in a world where money dictates justice, power trumps principle, and privilege reigns supreme. And honestly, some days, many days, it feels that way. But as Public Justice Board member Linda Correa once told opposing counsel in one of our Title IX cases, Linda, we're here to change your world. That is the legacy of everyone in this room. And that is the foundation upon which we will build this new epic that summons us forward. In the coming weeks, I'll be traveling around the country. We were going to call it the Eras Tour, but that got taken by my friend Taylor Swift. So now we're going to say it's the Epics Tour instead. And I won't be setting off seismic sensors with dance routines, but I will be doing something that's equally capable of shaking the very ground that we stand on. I'll be planning, and partnering and pushing forward with each of you. Because now is the time for brazen ideas, for bold advocacy, and for the big cases that just might change the world. You all are the heart of public justice, and our partnership holds the promise of better days ahead. The phone is ringing, history is calling, and we are ready to answer that call. Thank you for inviting me to take this journey with you. It is my privilege to be your fellow traveler, and I know that these first steps that we've taken together this evening are the beginning of an adventure that will take us far. Together, we can build this new epic of possibility and grow this amazing organization into an even more formidable force to be reckoned with. Tonight, we celebrate. Tomorrow, we start traveling down this new road together. Thank you, and have a great evening.
It's an honor to address you tonight as your newly elected president of Public Justice. And while we have always known at Public Justice that women make great leaders, it also seems like America might be ready for a woman president too. I worked on important projects as a lawyer before I got involved with public justice. Arthur Bryant and Paul Bland said, we really need you to come help us. But I have to tell you that it wasn't until I started engaging with public justice, till I experienced the truly worthwhile projects and was inspired by the courageous hearts and the dazzling frigging minds in this room. That changed everything for me. These are people who see injustice and they take action. Public justice, though, it's not just an organization. It's a friggin' movement. And it's you, and it's me, and it's every member in this trial bar, every lawyer who engages with our mission, who attends our meeting, who supports us, to frigging unraveling right before our eyes. But amidst all those challenges, there's a beacon of hope. Don't you feel that too? That beacon of hope is public justice. Today, we are facing many threats. But we have the power to shape the world, you and I. This organization is a strong foundation to build upon. Everyone in this room, we are among the most privileged and talented trial lawyers in the world. And we all together have the ability to make a difference. You have to, here's my secret. This is my secret to happiness. Are you ready? Yeah. You have to engage with that brings you joy, that brings you hope. And this is what public justice did for me. Being around people that find solutions to really complex problems and who find those solutions and win those cases, they make you a better human being. We need you to find that place within yourself right now that weeps for those great injustices. When you feel, and you need to feel like you are doing exactly what you were meant to do by joining our ranks, helping us litigate these most important cases of our time. And we need you to speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves. At a time when women's rights are clearly under attack, I want you to remember that public justice, they literally redefined Title IX to protect women, girls, and the transgender community. We have found justice for families, provided education for bullied students, and stopped discriminatory policies dead in their tracks. At a time when our Supreme Court seems beholden to partisan forces, don't you forget, this group, Public Justice, has gotten justices across the political spectrum to agree unanimously, and we've won cases in front of that same sitting Supreme Court that you're. So for me, public justice is hope. Hope in times that seem hopeless. Progress when the path forward seems uncertain. And a victory when the wins feel like they're few. The most important things that ever happen to us in life, in my experience, happen when the best parts of you meet up with opportunity. Imagine if the lawyers in this room were all focused. We took our talents, our skills, our strengths, and we all focused them in the same direction on these projects together. It could be transformative. We could save America, this group of lawyers. As we embark on this new chapter with our new CEO, I ask you to seize this moment. Let us be the best versions of ourselves as lawyers, as human beings. And let's stand up, because we can face these problems if we but care enough to act. And while these threats are not trivial, my money is on us every time. I expect that this is the year that we finally fulfill our destiny to be the most consequential legal organization in all of America. So I ask you to resist that urge to climatize yourself into this state of constant fear and dread. Defy all of it. Let's level the fuck up. Rise to the occasion. This is not something that any one of us could ever do alone, but it is something that we must do together. Thank you very much for being here, for your dedication, and for your unwavering commitment to this organization that I love and that has inspired my life.
In 2023, 3 days after the mass shooting at Covenant School here in Nashville left 6 people dead. Protesters assembled outside of the Tennessee State House. Many of them held signs with a simple 2-word plea: do something. Now, protests and protest signs are not unusual or unique in the wake of national tragedies. But what happened next here in Tennessee was 3 members of that very state house decided to take their constituents' advice and actually do something. Representatives Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson, tired of their colleagues' refusal to take any meaningful action to curb the deadly epidemic of gun violence, brought the protest inside the legislative building. In response, the Republican supermajority decided that the lawmakers would be stripped of their committee assignments and should undergo expulsion proceedings. After a heated debate, the House voted to expel both Pearson and Jones. Johnson was spared by a single vote. Their protest and the decision to punish them for taking a stand put Tennessee in the national spotlight, and the lawmakers, now known as the Tennessee Three, made news around the world. It was, as Representative Jones said later, an attempt to make sure he and his colleagues were, quote, blocked from expressing views on critical issues that they were elected to express, ensuring that viewpoints dissenting from the majority or silence, neither heard nor spoken. But silence was not an option. And following the protest and expulsion, the Tennessee Three were most certainly heard. 10 days after the protest, Representative push it to change. That actually leads to progress. At Public Justice, we know a thing or two about changing institutions. In fact, it is spelled out in our strategic plan, where we seek to affirm and prioritize cases and opportunities to advocate for changing laws, policies, and institutional practices, beliefs, and assumptions. That's exactly what Representatives Johnson, Jones, and Pearson are doing at the political level. And that's why we're honored to present them with our 2024 Champion of Justice Award. Because as Representative Pearson said, just 10 days after being expelled from the State House, the reason why it's worth it is that I'm assured that there is a victory date. I know it in my soul, and the reason I know it is because what we are fighting for is not because there is a financial interest associated with it. It's not because there's a lot of fame or recognition that comes with it. It's not that. It's that we believe in our hearts that this is true, and so that cannot be taken. And the main thing is that we will never quit. So how can we lose? If you never quit, there is no way you can lose. Tonight is all about never quitting. It's about the fights that don't make us rich or famous, but about the promises that our country makes, liberty and justice for all, that we believe in our hearts must be true and we hold dear because we cannot lose. Tonight we are honored to be joined by two of these illustrious Tennessee Three, Representative Pearson by video and Representative Johnson here in the room, and to recognize them as true champions of justice. First, let us hear from Representative Pearson.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tennessee State Representative Justin J. Pearson, representing House District 86. I'm so humbled to receive this award alongside my colleagues, Representative Justin Jones, and our next U.S. Senator, Representative Gloria Johnson. I'm humbled to receive this award from each and every one of you who are true champions for justice and standing up for those who've been pushed for the periphery, standing up for those who have been told that they are voiceless, standing up for those who too often are not allowed the opportunity to even have access to amazing lawyers and teams who care about them. You all are champions for justice. And so to be counted in your number is such an honor and such a privilege, particularly at such a time as this, when our nation seems to be being torn asunder culturally, where our institutions, like the Supreme Court, is becoming much more political rather than apolitical branch of government that focuses on jurisprudence, now seems to be much more focused on political points being scored by one team. These are difficult and dangerous times for our American constitutional democratic experiment place. And I am so happy and so thankful and so grateful to be considered to be a part of it alongside you. Because I am convinced that what we need now in this moment and this time in America more than any other time is a movement for justice that is rooted in love. We need a movement for justice, for equality, for equity, for fairness, and we need to root it in love. Because love is still the most powerful force in the world. We have to believe that our love of our nation, our love of our state, our love of our country, our love for the people who live here and all kinds of people, not just the ones who look like us or pray like us or vote like us. We have to love everybody in this country and believe that they have access to the same principles, the same ideals that are under threat right now, that all people are created equal and endowed by that creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that will require us to march, that will require us to speak up, that will require us to fight back, that will require us to give the best of our effort to save this democracy. And that is what we are doing in the state of Tennessee. That is why we cannot yield, and we must dissent to the way that things have been happening all across this country. And we must continue to build. not just be against things, but be for things, be for liberty, be for freedom, be for justice, be for equality, be for equity, be for the champions in the movement for justice. And each and every one of you are extraordinary champions. You do extraordinary work. And when you get tired or weary, I hope that you will remember that your fighting is not in vain and that you do not fight alone, that I am with you. Our entire community is with you. And we believe in the vision and the value and the hopes and the dreams of tomorrow. Let us never give those away, for it's our power. Thank you all so much, and thanks for being champions. God bless you, and God bless our country too.
And now, I'm also proud to welcome another of these amazing Tennessee 3 to the stage, Representative Gloria Johnson.
First, I just have to thank you all. It's been a very moving and emotional night for me for a lot of reasons. I have to thank you for the work that you do. It is critical to justice, which is so important right now. It's never been more important in my lifetime, I don't think. And to the folks who did the Kingston coal ash case, thank you so much. Every year in Knoxville, we have a workers' memorial celebration or memorial to recognize the folks who have passed away from their jobs. And every year, I read the names each year, some of the names each year, and every year there are more people that were workers at the Kingston coal ash spill. And some years they come and they speak to us. One in particular came and spoke to us 2 years ago, and this past year he wasn't there. Just thank you so much for the work that you do. It's critical. And one is not important. This election is incredibly important, but the work that you all do is so important as well. And regardless of the outcome of this election, you guys are going to be critical in helping to maintain democracy, and restore justice to a country that is really struggling at this point. You know what's happening in Tennessee. Much of the world saw what is happening in Tennessee. Democracy dies in the states. It truly does. And we know this, and we have seen it in Tennessee. We have a Christian nationalist governor. We have Christian nationalists in our state house. There's no question why my two colleagues were expelled and I was not. Don't get me wrong, they hate my guts. Nothing, you know, there is something they hate more than a mouthy woman. It's young black men who speak truth to power. And that's what we did. Thousands and thousands of students and parents and grandparents showed up at the Capitol because they were hurting. A whole community was hurting. Communities across the state, because people came from Memphis who were sick and tired of gun violence in their communities, and from Knoxville who were tired of it. From all across this state, do not have to live this way. And my colleagues across the aisle, we got there early to talk to moms who said, I dropped off my kids at school to be here today, and I'm terrified, wondering if they're going to be safe when we meet the bus or pick them up at school. We do not have to live this way. This is a policy choice. This is a policy choice, and the supermajority in Tennessee cares more about guns than they do our children, care more about the money from the NRA and the Tennessee Firearms Association than they do about our children and our communities. It's disgusting. But they also care more about their power and controlling women than they do children who will be in deep danger. Forcing a 10-year-old to carry a pregnancy from a rape, in a state where 1/3 of our counties do not have an OBGYN, where more than a third of our counties don't have a hospital close by. You could be an hour or an hour and a half from a hospital or an OBGYN in Tennessee, and we are forcing women to carry their rapist's baby. More rights for a violent rapist. They get to choose the mother of their child. But a woman can't choose not to have her rapist's baby. And what 27 or 24 anti-LGBTQ bills a year? Republican politics is a politics of division. They want to put those wedges issues in there and divide us because that's the only way they win. But the greatest thing that came out of all of those thousands of people showing up at the Capitol, they sang together, they chanted together, they had lunch together, and they talked to each other about the issues and the things that they cared about. And they committed to each other to support each other's issues and to stand together and not be divided. Created a multiracial, multi-generational, multi-partisan coalition rolling into November of 2024. And this coalition is going to hang together and not be divided. We will not let their politics of hate separate us. If you drive through rural Tennessee, I'm proud to say there are very few Trump signs out there. I don't know what that means exactly, but I know the numbers for him are not what they should be in Tennessee, and so we're excited about that. But I think that running on hate should be a losing battle, and I think we're going to show them that it is. The overreach, they're terrified of something that looks different, worships differently than they do, or believes differently than they do. There's no question about it. These are scared little men who are afraid of losing their power, but guess what? We're going to band together, and we're going to make it happen, and then you guys will help us to tie it all back together and bring back justice and that love that justice actually is, that love of everyone in our community, and respecting the human dignity of every single person in this state or in this country, and not just corporations or the wealthy and well-connected. So thank you all so much. I appreciate this. My colleagues appreciate it. I am so honored to work with these young, amazing men who are just wonderful friends of mine, and they will not stop fighting, and none of us will stop fighting, and we're here if you need us. So thank you all so much. We appreciate it.
So come on down, make a little donation, and let's celebrate this night and get ready to take on this country together. Thank you so much. Tonight, all of our champions of justice, our Trial Lawyer of the Year finalists, and especially our award winners. Wow, how inspirational. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. See you next door.